Welcome, everybody. This is our February 23rd Finance Committee regular meeting. We have a quorum of Peggy Briggs, Karen Sharp-Patel, I'm reading mine, Ray Andrews, Dee Ortner, Christine Reynolds, Don Kupka, Kathy Kuplo, John Farlow, Cynthia Rain, nope, not ours. Is that 8?
Well, we've got Eric Dahlberg, we've got Don Kupka and Kathy Kukla, and John Garofalo.
I said Kathy and John. Okay. Good
We've got
enough.
Don and Eric.
Excellent. Okay.
And Peggy, one quick thing, we do need to assign a scribe. I inadvertently left that off as an agenda item.
Okay, well, we are going to have to assign a scribe from someone who isn't attending in person.
Which would be all of us.
Let's see, who hasn't done it in a while? Everyone's ducking under their desk. Dee. How about you, Dee?
Dee,
Yeah, you.
I just did mine in November or December.
Okay. I haven't written it up yet, but I kind of took over last week when we were with the school committee. Anybody want to raise a hand?
I'll raise my hand. Let's just keep moving. It'll be short and sweet the way I do them, but let's go.
Okay. Parachars. Moving the meeting. Okay. Okay, that's the call to order and the scribe, FinCom Finance. We're now talking Lois. Okay, we're going to move to item number 3. And we'll come back to item number 2 when Lois gets on. So, everybody got their pink book. So I really urge everyone to go. There's some pretty interesting things that will be discussed on Monday, this very Monday, at the select board hearing. And then we have our finance committee for town budget articles, including the capital and community preservation committee. On March 1st, I think I've already mentioned, I will not be able to attend that due to family commitments, and Parachar will be handling that. And then the planning board is on March 7th. Finance committee again for the school and budget articles on March 9th. And then our final hearing will be on March 15th. That's the enterprise funds. Now, so I guess that's item 3. All right. I know this, it sounds really weird, but, or maybe it's overdoing it. But I've got my warrant out and I'm gonna turn the pages and make sure, because I do feel, and I mea culpa, I feel there were some items on the special town meeting that folks that I, more than quickly moved out of our venue, if that's the right way to put it. So I don't want that to happen again. So do you mind if we just quickly turn the pages?
Go for it.
Okay. Meeting procedure is a FinCom, that's a long-term rule where if you show up and propose an article or make a motion that's gonna cost more money.
Can I interrupt for a minute, please? Gail, can we share the article, please, so that everybody can see
That
what
would be great.
page?
Yeah, share the whole, share the warrant. My husband always laughs at how well-worn my warrant is.
Is that being shared correctly, Parasha?
Yeah.
A little bigger sideways if you can. Can you make it bigger? So we can all read it.
There we go. That's good.
Perfect.
Oh, went backwards.
No, we're not. No,
Okay.
no, we're good. Okay. Okay, so meeting procedure is, it's pretty routine, but, okay. New classification, here's one I thought we might wanna consider. Article 5. The new classification and compensation plan. Now, this, I think we all know the town is doing some reclassification, ... And do we want to weigh in on this, or do we want to just accept that it goes into the town budget? And that's where our place is the town budget and not the, we're not micromanaging the comp plan. So I thought that might be worth a discussion. Any comments?
So I do have a question for Gail and Bob. And Bob, I know you're going to talk a little bit in a few minutes around the 5-year tax bill projections. And of course, we'll have 5-year cost estimates, both for CPS, the regional school district, and the towns estimates. I wonder, Bob and Gail, whether the 5-year cost estimates we had in the fall from the town, will they be updated and revised to incorporate any impact from the changes in the compensation plan?
Just point of process, the articles 4 through 6 will not be discussed at the public hearing on Monday. The new classification compensation plan is not yet ready. The current idea is that we will continue the public hearing to March 27th, by which time we expect to have that classification and compensation plan. I don't even think that everybody has a draft of it yet. So I don't know that anybody has a definitive statement that they can make relative to this. So just letting you know.
Yeah, Matt, that is, thank you. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't miss an article that we should be weighing in on.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean, they'll be
Yeah,
here.
I mean, it's a kind of an extraordinary thing. I don't recall ever continuing a town meeting public hearing because an article wasn't ready before. So, this is an unusual situation. So I just wanted to at least highlight that that's what was going on.
Okay, Christine.
thanks, Peggy. So Gail, I just want to confirm something. So no matter how the report comes out, the budget is the budget, right? So this is not going to change. If the town voted yes on whatever, let's say the report comes out and the town agrees on whatever the adjustments are to classification and comp, that does not change the 24 town budget. Is that correct?
The budget is the budget. We have set it with placeholders for the impact of the class income.
Okay.
Right. That's what's in the salary reserve, right?
Correct.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so Peggy, from my perspective, I guess I'm interested, once the report comes out, I am interested in what the consultant had to say, because as Parashar points out, it may have implications for us going forward in terms of compensation increases in the town. So I would like to hear about it, and perhaps we can, we can do that by attending this hearing on the 27th or whenever they come out with the plan. But I don't feel like we have to have this as an article on which we make a recommendation, as it does not affect the budget. And maybe we need to make that clear in the FinCom report.
I would concur with that, yes,
All right,
to make it clear.
thank you. That's exactly the thinking I was, wanted to tease out. Parashar.
So I'm glad it's incorporated in the fiscal year 24 numbers. My question is it also incorporated into the 5-year cost projections that we had in the fall, or will those have to be updated?
I think once we know what the plan is, Parashar, and the impact, will be better situated to answer that question. I think it's a little difficult to answer it without having the hard and fast numbers. If there's any potential future impact, we would obviously revise the estimates.
Okay.
Yeah. So Parashar, just to point on that, right? So the FinCom report goes, I think, to press, Gail, am I right, on the 5th of
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Okay. So Parashar, depending upon, how much the change is, or, if it's material or not, we could do something in a handout, I guess, if the projections for the town dollars really changed a lot, but we might not get it in the report, depending on, where they were.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we can always make a note that it doesn't include the impact of these
Yeah,
changes.
yeah.
That's all.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so we will not feel awkward that that's not in our hearing. It's a select board hearing. Same with the next one, the amended classification and compensation plan. Same idea,
Yep.
it's a management thing, and so long, these are all fine, so long as, they're already in the budget. I hate to say baked in, but yeah, they're in the budget, and the budget is what we care about, the overall budget, and we're not micromanaging, stuff like swimming, fitness, etc. Okay, free cash. Right now, we're looking at $1 million. And obviously, we will, that'll be in our hearing.
Can we just, so Peggy, on that one, so
Yep.
Gail, at one point, it was gonna be 750, and now in the warrant, it ended up at $1 million. Do we know where that's gonna be? Oh, no, that's the amount that was going to stabilization. I'm
Yes.
sorry, never mind, I'm confused. Sorry.
Yeah, there's two pieces there, yeah.
Yep, sorry.
I apologize. If you start apologizing, what am I gonna start doing, okay? Well, I'll apologize, okay.
All right.
So next, town budget, that's obviously, line item adjustments, free town budget, obviously those are, I don't want to talk about the items, I just want to make sure that we're not missing any, articles. Okay.
Peggy,
Yep.
just FYI, that
Yes, Laura.
article was on the warrant last year, but it wasn't moved. So we actually, I don't know if we knew that before we did the report. I'd have to look at the report, which I have. But yeah, if it's going to be moved, we should make a recommendation on it. But if it's not going to be moved, and we know that before the report is done, then we leave it out.
You mean Article 8, Lois, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the,
Yeah,
Yeah,
town budget.
that's already listed for us to make motion on or to think about and our.
if it's being moved, which it wasn't
yeah,
last
if
year.
it's being moved, right.
Yeah, but
Gail,
it's
are you,
our
Gail,
hand.
sorry. Gail, are you expecting to move 8? Do you have adjustments or you just don't know yet?
At this point, I do not have any, so for the public hearing, there won't be anywhere in the process of updating our projections, but as of today, we do not anticipate any.
Okay,
Okay.
I mean, I don't have to do that at the public hearing.
Good motivation. Okay, the town budget obviously is our hearing. The citizen petition, the DEI director to determine, this is a citizen petition, whether we should urge the select board to ask the town manager to expedite the hiring of full-time director of DEI and inclusion requested by the DEI commission. So do we, that's Talia Galis. And it's on the select board hearing, hi, Matt.
Right.
I'm gonna call on Matt.
Well, two things. First of all, the DEI commission co-chairs, I believe, will be presenting the article, not the petitioner. At least that's the plan that I've heard. And that, yes, at the last minute, we did move it over to the select board hearing. It had originally been scheduled for the finance committee hearing, but based upon your feedback, we moved it.
Okay, so Matt, could I assume then that it's within the town budget that you're presenting at town meeting?
No, it is not within that budget. So that's, the select board has not deliberated on this.
Okay.
And we will, subsequent, of course, to the hearing, we're going to hear what they have to say at the hearing.
Okay. So I would just suggest to the finance committee, where our focus is on the budget. And if this gets a lot of support and, changes the budget, then we'll maybe weigh in on it. Otherwise not. Does the board feel that way? Like if it doesn't change up the town budget.
Well, I think that's right, Peggy. It's just, it's not, it's right as it applies to this article, but as we go through it, the issue is we're supposed to be engaged in dealing with any situation in which town resources are going to be, the town is going to be committing or spending money. I can pull out the actual language.
Yeah.
So it depends on whether there's a financing source for it. We may or may not it may or may not be appropriate for us to comment on this.
Well, I was gonna actually take a little bit of the different tack. I mean, even if select board supports expediting, it's one FTE out of a budget of 30 million.
Yeah.
I don't know if FinCom needs to weigh in
yeah.
just because they're potentially gonna expedite the hiring of a director. Presumably it would be, hopefully could just fit somewhere in the budget. And frankly, even if there's another, I don't even know if it's possible to amend the budget to add another line item for the cost of this, but given the relative scale, I would suggest we just not focus on it.
Yeah.
So
Just
should,
for-
so should the document just highlight the fact that it's a non-budgeted item at this point?
If we're not making a recommendation, if it's not within our purview, if it's not within our remit, then we don't make a recommendation one way or the other, and we don't have to, essentially we don't have to include it in our report. let me just read, just to frame the discussion, I'll just read you the sentence of the bylaw. It says that when the warrant for a town meeting contains any article or articles under which an appropriation or expenditure of money or the disposition of any property of the town may be made, the Finance Committee shall consider such article or articles and shall report in print its recommendations to such town meeting. We may consider and report in any other article where, in the opinion of a majority of the committee, such consideration is advisable for the best interests of the town. But our specific remit has to do with the expenditure, appropriation or expenditure of money or the disposition of property. And if this article, if any expenditures that would be made pursuant to this article, as Parashar pointed out, are encompassed within the town's budget, then we don't necessarily have to make a separate comment on it because we're already commenting on the budget.
Well, I have a question about that.
It's not, but I'm hearing that it's not in the budget.
It's not in the budget yet, but if the position is created, it will be.
People to hold their hand up, but I also want to, before everyone put your hand up electronically, please. The meeting procedure, Article 3, pretty much says, you know, if there's anything proposed that is going to cost money, they have to identify where the money is coming from. I don't see it. It's a full-time equivalent. You know, the question is, it's a full-time equivalent, unless it's within the town budget and there's something else going out of the town budget, then it's an additional cost. And that's why I kind of flagged it. It's a select board article, but does the finance committee want to weigh in on it? Obviously, it's somewhat political. So Dee has her hand up.
Yep, thanks. The only comment I want to make is if we approve the town budget as it is, and by hiring a DEI person, it exceeds the budget, that we can't, how does that get managed? Because we cannot, a budget cannot be higher than what's reported in the warrant, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if in fact the budget is exceeded because a DEI person is hired, how does that work?
It would have to be offset somewhere else in the budget, D.
I understand that, but if it's not, how,
It would
do
have
we
to
have
be.
to make a statement? Do we have to make a statement for Article 8 that says whatever they want to do, they can do as long as the hiring of somebody does not exceed the budget?
I think it's Article 10, D. Yeah.
Article, all right, whatever the article number is.
Okay.
Article 10.
Bob, I'm going down my list has hands up. Bob?
Yeah, Peggy, you partly answered the question in Article 3. If the town budget has passed and then something else comes along, it needs to identify a source of funds.
Right.
Which, generally, from what I know, it's either a fund you have or free cash.
Correct.
And you'd really have to ask the moderator, is it within the four corners of the warrant to amend a previously passed article? I doubt it.
Right.
So I
Okay.
don't think, the town budget, if it's just passed as is, I don't think that's related to this position at all. It's already done unless the moderator thinks differently.
Parashar.
Yeah, I think maybe we're overreading this, or maybe I missed something that Matt might have said. I mean, all this is doing, I think, a plain reading, is basically urging the select board to ask the town manager to expedite the hiring. It doesn't say go hire, and it doesn't say anything else. So just the plain reading of it, unless there's money built into the budget already, it just appears that they're urging expediting the hiring to the point earlier, it appears that if they want to go higher, they'd have to find money elsewhere in the budget to go higher. I just, plain reading of this, it just doesn't, I don't get a sense of how it would affect
Okay,
the
that's,
spending other
okay,
than what's in the budget.
yeah, Paris are totally correct, and most articles, articles at town meeting are all designed to urge, not direct, and, for lots of legal reasons that Matt can, weigh in on if he wants to, but my question.
One could propose, they could have a warrant article that did direct the hiring, but it would have to find funding. But
Correct.
this is recommending. So as Parashar is saying, it's just saying, please, town manager and select board, find a way.
Yeah.
It isn't allocating funds.
Exactly. Kathy,
My comment again is it seems like we're talking a lot about this, so it is not clear. And if I was a townsperson, I would want, I was going to say, if I'm not on the finance committee, I would want to know that, yes, this is urging the hiring and it's either within the scope of the budget or not. So if the select board is presenting this, I think someone somewhere should be making a statement to that effect. That's my opinion.
thank you. I think that is exactly the finance committee's spot. We're not deciding whether there should be a DEI commission or a new hire, but right now, I just flagged it because on the select board, it's not on our hearing. And the question to the committee is, should we take a position or not, or just wait? My feeling, honestly, is that we should take a position sooner rather than later, that this petition needs to identify the source of funding, and it should come out of the town budget from some other reduction.
So that we have two options. Well, not, we don't want to get down the road of a vote right now, but we only have two options. We can recommend affirmative action, or we can recommend no action.
Or we can move it and wait until town meeting.
Well, we can certainly wait until this after the hearings.
Yeah.
And
Right,
make a decision
yeah.
at our final
Should
board
do.
meeting. I mean, yeah, I'm not suggesting we vote now. I don't think we should be voting on anything now. We haven't had any hearings.
I'm not suggesting we vote. I'm only
yeah, I know.
suggesting, should we include that? Well, I'm reacting to some feedback I got from earlier meetings when I started out as chair and didn't include certain articles that later felt like they were financial. So let's just conclude the minutes on this. Parashar, unless your hand's still up. Parashar.
Yeah, I would recommend that right now, we decide not to make a recommendation. Because I think we have that choice, because again, the plain reading of this is they're urging. It doesn't have any clear financial implications. To the extent that changes, we can change our mind, but at this point, I personally don't see why FinCom should make a recommendation either way. We can just stay silent on this. Why do we have
I
to comment?
concur. I concur.
Who's the scribe tonight?
I am.
You are, okay. So could you please make a note that we discussed Article 10, and if it is moved forward or recommended that the source of funding needs to be identified within the proposed already proposed town budget. Otherwise, the finance committee will want to weigh in on additional budget for this position. Does that make sense to everyone?
Well,
I don't
Well,
know.
how could they,
I mean,
I don't
I
know
think
how that would happen. How
Lois,
could we do that?
or
I
just-
think it goes further than we need to at this stage. Peggy.
Yeah,
I do too.
I
I don't
think
think
so
you need
too.
to make
Yeah,
any
I don't-
decision
we-
right now.
We don't,
Okay,
need- we
fine.
discussed it. I think what we've concluded is we need to hear about it and then
Yeah.
we'll consider whether or not to include it. So I'm going to include it in my working list of articles as just what we're going to follow. And it may drop out before we take votes, or we may take a formal vote on it. This is just a quick overview to give people a sense of where the finance committee should be focusing as we go into hearing season.
Okay, I'm fine. Thank you. Great. Okay, capital improvement plan, that's on already, the next. Moving on, capital improvement, OPEB trust funded grants, appropriation of
Hold
opioid.
on, it's going too fast. So Articles 11, 12, and 13, we will make recommendations, correct?
Absolutely, yes, we are, those are all FinCom
Right.
hearing items on which we will, report in our report.
Exactly. 14 is brand new.
Yes,
That we,
15,
this is a,
15,
this, no, 14 is new. 14 is the appropriation of opiate settlement funds.
Yeah,
And that's just never come up before. So I'm just mentioning that because I don't know if that's something that we need to be involved in. It kind of sounds like we do. But it's a brand new article this year because it addressed the situation that didn't exist last year. This fund.
Yeah. but it's,
So
Lois, 17, it's currently assigned to the finance committee hearing.
okay.
77, 362 and 88 cents, from free cash, reflecting the amount allocated to the Commonwealth in town of Concord. So,
Right. It's administrative, I think, Peggy. So the town got that
Totally.
money. And I think it has to be put into free cash in order to use it. So they're earlier on, they note that they're going to send about 29,000 of it to the Board of Health. And I don't know, I imagine the rest of it just sits in free cash. So I think this should be on our list because it affects free
Yeah.
cash.
Yeah, I think it's on our list. I don't think it's controversial.
That is,
but I just
that
think
is
it's on
at our hearing and on our list.
Yep.
I will be slowing down where it's not on our list.
Okay.
Okay, so Minuteman, the high school budget, public school budget. We're not discussing that tonight. It's on our budget, obviously. Public school capital projects. Whoever's looking through these is excellent. Public school capital projects, fields and landscaping, slow down, okay. For anyone that hasn't been following this, the school committee, put in this article for, 1.8 million. And the upshot is that if the budget, if their budget doesn't pass, they have this number to work on the fields. Now, I'm not sure if it makes any sense anymore because, the 7.2 passed both in town meeting and at the polls. So I'm not sure if they're even gonna move it.
Peggy, it was
Peggy.
related to the bids. So if the
Okay.
bids come in higher, then they have items, they included for the bidders, the ability to cut things out of the project. They
Yeah.
call them alt deletes. So
Also,
the fields
Yep.
are in there. So in case the fields have to get cut to bring the bids in line with the new number, the 110 million,
yeah,
then they're going to ask for more money for the fields. That's the strategy here.
okay.
Yeah.
This is basically, you know.
And I think this
Well,
requires a ballot vote.
What?
This is
If
excluded,
it's
this is
excluded
excluded
debt,
debt.
yeah,
So if
yeah.
it passes a town meeting, we have to do another ballot vote on it.
I think that's right.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's right. We can double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's right. So this is clearly something we need to monitor, Peggy. And if it looks like
Yeah.
this is going to be moved, because by the time over the next month, I think they'll have a better sense of the bids. They may decide not to move this,
Right.
or they may decide they don't need to move it. But
Right.
if they do, we absolutely have to weigh in on it.
And
Yep.
this is on it is FinCom. I just am highlighting it because I think there may be some FinCom members that were, that might have missed the memo that the Concord Public Schools slipped in another 1.8 million. Okay, Don.
Peggy, I just wanted to point out that when we had a previous discussion about the additional spending for the school, you were very clear that this spending couldn't, or the building had to conform with the wording of the original warrant article that was approved for the 102 or 102.7, I forgot the figure, $1 million. And if you look at that, it doesn't say anything about the size of the building, et cetera, but it clearly says including the fields. So I
Right.
would question whether or not this is even possible.
Don? That's outside of our scope. Totally understand every word you said. But I just am pointing out that it's here. It's on the FinCom hearing, and Parashar has his hand up as well.
So I had a question. I don't know if I know Cynthia's on and Matt is on. When do we expect the bids to come in? Just matter of timing. I'm trying to understand timing relative to when we've got to put our report together.
Yeah,
I believe they're due at the end of February. I think any day now, actually, is when they would go out to bid, I should say. Or no, when we receive bid packages, I know that the bids will be awarded in the first week of May, right after town meeting. So I believe that the schedule's been defined so that if the bids come in high, that this article could be moved and passed, and that the bid could be inclusive of this work, is what I think.
Let me rephrase my question. Our deadline is what? First couple days in April to get the
Yeah, I think you're going to.
our recommendations to print. My only question is, will we know before then whether the bids came in higher, and
Yeah, I
therefore
believe
we'll
you
have to
will.
recommend or not?
Yeah, I believe it will.
Okay, thank you.
but we do have that, well, anyway, I'm not gonna waste everyone's time flipping through all my spreadsheets, but I think if you go back through a few of our agendas, or probably back to November, you'll find that. Fresh.
Yes, I think the bids are probably like about 45 days time frame between the time they start, which is, I believe, next week. They're going out for bidding, so I haven't seen the ad as yet in the Central Register, so I believe it's going out next week and 45 days from thereafter. And that's my understanding. And the other question I have is, looking at the article, this is to say to use new natural grass athletic turf fields. So did the original, I don't recall what the original article was in the 103 million, was athletic fields, but did it include turf fields, or did it use the word turf, or did it include the word athletic fields?
It was designed to be natural turf, and I do stand corrected, Suresh. You're right that the bids just are going out at the end of Feb. So I guess you will not have the bids back in hand, but they will be in hand before town meeting.
Right, and I can't raise, for some reason, I think because I'm sharing, Matt, the packages are slated to go out March 8th and bids are due back at the end of April with an award targeted, I believe it's around April 27th. So the timing is very tight. So it will not be, the bids will
Oh,
not
okay,
be in
because the
hand.
last I heard it was May 3rd, okay, for the award.
I think that's when all the documents are slated to be signed. I think there'll be a meeting on the 27th to go over the results and get hopefully the approval, but it will not be by the beginning of April for the publication of the FinCom report.
And then also, it sounds like there would have to be some sort of amendment if we got to the point where this article was proposed, passed, voted on, etc. There would have to be some sort of, if you were going to try to roll it into the general.
Right, it would be a separate process we would follow, because
Okay.
they'd want to move forward with where they, except because the bids are set up such that they're the deduct. So we would talk through that process once we knew what the numbers were.
Yeah, the dates have been moving around a little bit.
Yeah.
I have to say, I'm impressed how the dates have stuck to some earlier estimates. Steve.
You know, I just wanted to go back to something that Parashar said, that in the vote that we took for the cost for the project for the school, it did say land, development of the land and fields, etc. And I'm wondering if this article is premature, period. Do we need to have this funding now? And only, I guess, the developer could answer this question, or the building committee could answer this question. Do we need to have the landscaping funds and the fields funds at the same time? If we, when the construction is going to be taking place, because what's the timing on the construction? Could this article wait until next year?
Dee, I totally appreciate, I want to remind everyone, we're not we'll be having a hearing, and we're not negotiating or discussing the articles, other than if there's something we should have on our plate that's not on our plate. All of
Okay.
those are incredibly on point, totally agree. There will be plenty of time for discussion. But this meeting is not that time. We'll be having our hearing. I think you have already figured out I'm more of a process person than a numbers person. And we've got a couple hearings coming up, and then we'll really be digging into this Parashar.
So just after process, it sounds as if we need to make recommendations on this article.
Absolutely, it's on our.
Right.
It is on our list. I just wanted to highlight. It was a little bit of a surprise to me that they threw in this, or they added this article. So I just wanted to highlight it. Yes, Kathy.
I don't understand why this is separate from the votes we've already taken in terms of the construction of the school.
It's just more money, Kathy.
I know
It's just-
it's asking for more money, but didn't we put a cap on the money of 110 million? So
And they want the cap raised. They're looking for another 1.8.
Right.
If they can't fit it all within the 110.
Right. If they can't get fields, they want money for fields.
If the bid comes in higher, they've just put in another 1.8
we
for
just,
backup.
we just finished all last week.
Kathy,
But-
I would
Okay.
recommend that we
Kathy,
save it for the hearing.
We're gonna-
Let's just keep going with the
We're
process.
gonna stop the eye rolling and move on to the next articles.
Agree.
let's see, middle school is on light plant expansion.
Wait. On Article 20, Gail, do we know the number? Is it going to be 1 million or is it going to be 750?
I'm asking that. I should hopefully have an answer soon. I have to circle back with the assessors. There was back and forth of the 500 versus the 750, so. I'm
Okay,
chasing
so the
that
numbers
down.
on this one are still open.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Christine.
Yep.
The solar expansion, Article 21 is also on our agenda. And I just want to remind everyone, there's a public meeting on that, the 28th.
Right,
The 28th?
Next
of February, yep. I think it's at 6:30 D or something like that. It's on it should be on the calendar. I think they just posted the agenda. Peggy, do you
Okay.
want me to give a 2-second overview of what's going on here? To the
Yes, Christine, I would love that.
Okay. All right. So for those of you who haven't been following it, which I doubt many of you have. So Article 21 requests 13 million in debt authorization to be repaid by utility ratepayers. So the money is to fund a utility scale solar array with a battery sited at the Sanborn Middle School. The project is separate from the new middle school project. So the ratepayers are going to pay for the project, not the property tax, right? This is going to come through the rate bill. The solar energy that's,
Christine, this is going to be basically enterprise fund.
yes.
Yeah.
It's being run by an enterprise fund, right? The light plant, exactly right. It's being paid for through that, managed and paid for essentially as they pass it through to ratepayers. So that's how it's going to be paid. The benefits of it also go to the ratepayers. So that the energy that's generated by the solar array is going to go directly to the CMLP, the light plant's grid, for distribution and storage. It does not go to the school. Okay, so it's really just another way that CMLP, our light plant, is going to source energy. So instead of buying it from somewhere, we're going to source it out of a municipal site, which happens to be the middle school.
The new middle school, right?
Yes, the new middle school, right, exactly. So the latest cost estimate, so it's changed. So the Warren article went in at 13 million. The latest cost estimate is somewhere between 7 and 8 million. They changed the size of the battery that they were looking for, and that has brought the cost down. That 7 to 8 million costs covers, pardon me, a rooftop canopy and a car canopy, as well as the battery. And they'll amend the dollar amount at town meeting. There is potential for the cost to drop further. There may be federal infrastructure funds as well as ARPA funds that could be used to reduce the cost. I think for the purpose of the Warren article at annual town meeting, they will assume that they don't have those funds. They will seek them, but they'll probably come in with the 7 to 8 million. It probably drops by about maybe another 1.7 million if they can get some other funds, but I don't think you'll see that in the article. The light plant has done an estimate that the project will add, so the amount that gets passed through to the ratepayers is somewhere between $14 and $27 a year to the average electric bill over 20 years. So it has a net cost. So even when you assume the benefit of the, let's say, reduced cost of transmission or getting the energy in, it does have a net cost over the 20 years. The range has to do with whether they get ARPA funding or not, ARPA and infrastructure funding. So if they get funding, it drops to $14 on the average bill. If there's no funding, it's about $27. So they did this using a net present value calculation at their latest meeting. So that's what I know.
Thank you, Christine. I see Don.
Yeah, I'm wondering, does the light plant have the ability to issue debt, or is this vendor financing? I know we're not going to discuss this. at this
The
meeting.
light plant can issue all the debt it wants.
Yeah, it can issue its own debt. I think it is general obligation debt, but I could be wrong on that.
No, it's backed up by the ratepayers.
Is it a revenue? So is it a revenue bond?
I think it's revenue bond.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, they love that. I was on that board for a while.
Okay.
Here, sir.
So 2 questions. One is, Is this an article on which we're gonna comment on? Or make recommendations?
Yes, it is already. It's on our, this is a preview. It's already on our agenda.
Okay, thank you. And just related to that, one other thing, Christine.
Yeah.
At one of the recent school committee meetings, there was a conversation, the school committee didn't realize up until recently that in fact, they are a ratepayer that is gonna bear the cost and may actually seek to get subsidies from the light plant.
Yeah,
And I think, and we can discuss it when we discuss it, but I think that's something for us to consider and actually make a specific recommendation on as to whether that subsidy gets buried and borne by the ratepayers, or whether that ought to be a clear line item that everybody's aware of and therefore in the school budgets in the future.
yeah. I mean, that was an item that they brought up at the meeting. I don't believe the light board has considered it or responded yet.
I agree, but I think we ought to think about making the recommendation.
All right, let's see
Okay.
let's see what happens.
So my thought on that is there's no way David Wood is gonna subsidize anyone and going through. Anyway, Bob.
Thanks, Peggy.
I hope you're
Unless
gonna
something
correct
has-
me you're gonna correct me because I was wrong, right?
Unless something's changed in the last 2 weeks, the plan was to issue this debt for the light department. It would be general obligation debt ultimately.
Yeah, that's
It
what I
would be
thought.
backed up by the town's credit, and they would
Yeah.
issue, if you will, in part 2 of the middle school project. So not this spring, but a year from the spring, because the work is at the tail end of the project.
Okay, that's helpful. That's right. I thought most of their debt was geo debt. That's what I thought. So,
Yeah, they could do it either way, but geo debt's a lot cheaper.
yeah, exactly,
When I
exactly.
see Bob's hand go up, I knew I said something wrong. Okay, Suresh.
Okay,
Suresh?
Thank you, Peggy. So Bob, if this is going in the second phase and the documents from the contractor and these have to merge together because the work will be planned while the fields are being done, while the parking lot is being done. So that needs to be coordinated and with the contractor upfront, so he or she knows what they are up to and what they need to do. So it can be a second phase because the work has to be, and it has to be funded for that to happen.
I thought that this should need to be issued this spring, which is why I brought up the question, but the light department insisted that that's not what they were expecting, but we do have time to sort it out. At this point, given the project schedule, it looks like we'll probably be issuing debt in May, probably mid-May, maybe even late May. So there is time to change that, but that's what they were insisting a couple of weeks ago, is they would not need the cash right away.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. I'm just actually glancing at the agenda, so we need to move a little more quickly here. The next article, Article 22, is a citizen petition by Dean Banfield, Solar Generation Task Force, and adopting a specialized switch energy code. Those are both select board items, not ours, unless someone thinks we should make them ours.
So both of those you think we should opine on?
No.
I don't disagree.
no,
I'm
no,
just-
no, no.
No, they're both select board, not
Yeah,
ours.
they're not
Okay.
ours.
And then starting at Article 24, light plant pilots, that's ours. Appropriation for 250th anniversary celebration, that's ours. We're not talking about it now, we're just making sure it's on our list. Community Preservation Committee has always been on the FinCom list. Rescind and reappropriate. Concord Municipal Housing Trust, Article 28 is on our hearing. Transfer of housing funds. The Plainfield Road easement, that's at White Pond. It has to do with the little bit of access down to White Pond. That's not ours. That's the select board, and I don't see that we need to get involved.
Yeah, hold on that one. So I confirmed with Gail, Peggy, that one, there's no money changing hands on that, because that was my question. Is this easement being bought? And the answer was no.
Okay.
Is that right, Gail?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why I don't think it's on our list, because I don't think any money's changing hands here.
No taxpayer impact.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, BD Swim Fitness, that's ours. Demolition review bylaw. Oh, these are, that's a select board one, it's planning board, all we're doing there is changing the timeline, the notice timeline from 45 to 60 days. Restaurants, pretty interesting, but not our lane. I don't think, unless someone thinks it is. Zoning bylaw amendment, mobile food establishment, again. That's the,
Hold on a second, Peggy. Can you go backwards, please? Article 34.
Yep.
So I know this came up at the joint meeting we had last week around Finance Committee should try to encourage new sources of revenue. And now that I think about it, never mind, because I don't know that this will necessarily mean more revenue. Never mind.
okay. Yeah, I don't want to get into a debate between
Keep going.
mobile food and the existing fixed establishments. That's planning board. Then there's a combined business residence, that's also planning board. And then there are 2 citizen petitions about the noise, Those are not on our lane. Those are both select board. And honestly, if Matt can weigh in on this, but I think Article 37, back up a little, it will be the last article actually discussed at town meeting. I suspect the rest of them, which are all in our category, solid waste funds, sewer funds, sewer improvement funds, wastewater expenditures, cable funds, appropriation parking meter receipts.
I believe the town's policy is.
Those are probably all be on the consent calendar. Matt? Did you
Yeah,
say-
I believe our tradition is to pick one of the enterprise fund articles and have it be a formal presentation. But I can't speak to which one this year.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, usually these do go on the.
I'll just put it out there. I looked at this and I'm thinking the leaf blowers are gonna be the last article. And I hope there's still voters around that care. I hope it's still a balanced audience by the time those get around, but anyway.
Yeah, and we found a copy paste error at Article 46, but it won't be material.
Okay,
And just
Yeah.
to remind you, the article, the last year's equivalents of 45 and 46, unpaid bills and debt rescission, those are, in past years, they've been essentially placeholders in case they were needed, but they certainly weren't moved last year, or I think the year before.
Right.
So they may not be moved.
No, Gail, I think, who's on the line, has mentioned that these will not be moved this year. There's no.
Okay, great.
They are still placeholders, so
Yeah, but you can see the body of Article 46 is identical to the body of 45. So thank goodness we don't need to move it because we couldn't.
How convenient. Okay.
okay, so I think,
I had my hand up.
D,
Yeah, if we have any say in terms of articles to the enterprise fund kind of articles to be discussed, I would suggest we do 39, 40, 41. So that people get a better understanding of our infrastructure and the costs associated, the upcoming costs associated with any improvements.
okay. Yeah, I think that's, Matt, what happened to the waste, I'm sorry, wasn't there something going on relative to stormwater enterprise fund? Yeah,
It didn't, Bob, can you speak to that? I think Bob's on the call, right?
I say I think Bob's still in there. There's money in the capital plan to do a feasibility study, so there
Was there?
isn't,
Okay.
there's no plan currently to set it up. There's money to do the feasibility study.
okay. Because I was quite curious on if that was gonna be an enterprise fund, just who was gonna be, paying for it. Like water, sewer, like I'm on sewer, I pay for that, but if you're not on it, you don't pay for it, et cetera. And, wasn't exactly sure how that was gonna get parsed out for stormwater. But, okay, we're gonna move on because we're at 8:00. And we've got, a couple of, we're still gonna discuss on our agenda, the 5-year tax bill projections. Bob's gonna do that. And thank you all for wading through the warrant with me. I didn't want to wind up, I think we wound up at special town meeting with some articles that folks thought we should have put on our agenda and they weren't, so I didn't want that to happen again.
Don't
So-
forget, we have to do Lois. We went over number 2. We skipped it.
Lois, okay, let's,
Yeah.
number 2, Lois.
Yeah, I had trouble, the link didn't work for me. I had to basically type in the Zoom address, and that takes a while.
Oh,
How many tries for that?
Oh, I was very laborious. It took a while, but I got it right on the first shot. I was not going back to do it
You
again.
have to go slow and get it right the first time.
Oh, yeah. So Gail circulated this outline that I had prepared, and this year's, unless somebody wants to take over the responsibility of reorganizing the whole thing this year, which I'm happy to hand over, my expectation is that our FinCom report for town meeting this year will follow the structure and the format of the one we did last year. This is the format we've been using. This will be our 3rd year using this format. So that, so looking at last year's report is useful because you get a sense of what you're being asked to contribute. Because this is a team effort, so people are being asked to contribute. And if your name isn't specifically highlighted and you'd like to volunteer to help, that would be fine. So I laid out the outline with suggested suggestions for responsible people. Starting at the top, there were a couple of suggestions that came up when I was kicking this around with Parashar for not necessarily full freestanding additional sections in the introductory material, but deeper dives. And one of the things that Parashar particularly felt it would be useful to have a sort of deeper dive on is capital planning. So I don't know how people feel about doing that, whether they think it'll be useful. I agree that it would be. I think it's something that we need to raise some awareness of. And the town, Peggy and Parashar, get to write that section. So the Parashar also volunteered to take over what had been done in the past by Dean Bannon, which is the 5-year projection of real estate tax, which we are obligated to do every year. There was actually a town meeting vote on it that we tracked down to confirm that. In the past, that had been sort of owned by Dean completely, but we're hoping to make that more of a joint effort with the town. So the town will generate the templates, hi Bob, and those and own them, so that we will work together on the narrative surrounding them, but the actual calculations will be controlled by and live with the town finance department, which is really where they should be. If you've looked at the prior report, you know, there's that chart in the middle that summarizes all of our recommendations on anything that's within our purview. Responding to some commentary we got, some pushback we got a couple of years ago, we are very disciplined about making sure that we have a reason for each of our recommendations. And that's the writing assignment. If you are an observer of a particular committee or are the person with knowledge of a particular process, you will be writing a paragraph to slot in for those areas. In addition to that summary that appears in chart form for all of the articles that Peggy just walked us through and that we refined down, we do a deep dive. We have a section that really goes into more detail, supported by charts, narrative supported by charts, that comprises a chunk of the agreement, and that's the section detailed review of selected warrant articles. Some of those are prepared primarily by the town, like use of free cash, the description of their own budget, the capital improvement and debt plan. So Gail and Bob will be, I put town rather than Gail or Bob because I don't know how you guys are going to be allocating this, and I didn't want to presume. The other named assignments down here are tied to your observer assignments. And since the school is a big chunk of where we spend our money, the people whose assignments include school-related issues are going to be writing those sections. So that's why Kathy and Eric's names appear a lot. Christine has been the person who's been following Middle School Stabilization Fund and the solar expansion at the middle school most closely. So Christine's on the hook for those. Skipping one item, our two CPC affordable housing experts are Dee and Ray, so they get to do that. I don't know who would like to or who is appropriate to write about the 25th anniversary celebration, but we do need to comment on that article. That is going to actually be calling on the town to spend some serious money. So we need someone to take responsibility for that. So Peggy, as the chair, I ask you, who do you think the appropriate person is to write that section?
Well, Lois, I think you do a lovely job with that. I'm kidding. I'm just joking.
I'm sorry. Okay, no, anyone else like to do it?
That was just a joke.
Thank you. I had a bad moment, but I'm okay now.
Lois, our biggest challenge will be getting a clerk for next year because it's so much work. Kathy?
Lois, will you be sending out last year's document so that we can?
Last year's document was mailed to your house last year, and it's posted on the website.
But I think
the PDF is downloadable from the Concord website.
Can we, but I think what Kathy was saying, if I'm not mistaken, can we get a Word document so we can just redline it?
You know, since no one but me is going to be doing top to bottom edits, actually, anything you're writing is no more than a couple of paragraphs. Even the deep dives are 3 or 4 paragraphs. I think it would be better to not have a lot of Word document versions of the report running around. We're going to get into a version control nightmare. So if somebody specifically needs a section from last year, who's working on something and really wants it, I'll excerpt that out for you and send it to you. But if you want to get reminded of how much is involved and maybe even be able to work off of it, the little paragraphs that go into the chart are a matter of typing 3 sentences. I think you can do that looking at the PDF, and the PDF is immediately available on the website. You can download it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I am looking at the committee assignments, and I will be identifying a potential liaison for the 25th, 250th liaison.
We don't need to know right now if you want to.
I'm not planning to put anyone on the spot right this minute.
Yeah. Okay. But it's just it's a small hole.
Yep.
And we might also, if anyone feels that they've been following the developments with the school budget, that's a bear. I mean, Kathy wrote portions of it last year, and then we worked on it, and you remember, Kathy, we went back and forth a couple times, and that one's a lot of work. So if someone wanted to volunteer to help
Yeah,
with that,
that's one of the reasons why I was asking. And
yeah, no,
I mean, if you could just send that section to me in Word.
yeah, I can send that section to you in Word.
Thank you.
Definitely, I'll send it to you and Eric. And that's an area where actually we might have a small committee and maybe a third person helping out on that and dividing it up. It's where the money's getting spent. We owe the town a real obligation, a real explanation of
Perhaps
what we're doing.
I can make a suggestion. So why don't you send it to me?
Okay.
I'll make a pass, give it to Eric. Let's not try to have everybody working on it at the same time.
Fine.
Okay.
And there are a bunch of moving parts. Everything backs up to a deadline. So for example, I don't know what we're going to be doing. I think the CPS budget is still kind of a moving target, isn't it? Yep. I couldn't stay for the whole hearing, but I gather we're still, we'll be making some decisions about that. So it's a good idea to start working on the frame. I'll get that to you, Kathy. You'll have it by the early part of next week. I'm on my laptop right now. It may be living on my desktop, but one way or another, you'll have it by early next week.
Thank you. And can I ask one more question before I yield the floor? Do you have an update for us, Peggy, on the CPS?
I do not. I mean, we met with them last week.
Okay, nothing since the last meeting. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't.
Can I make a suggestion? That's a separate agenda item after this one. Can we hold that, Kathy?
Yep.
Until we get to that, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So I want to go back as the scribe to the 250th anniversary celebration. From what I understand, nobody's volunteered. And Peggy, if nobody volunteers by a certain date, you're going to assign a member. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Lois, back to you.
Okay, so
the smart man, you're saying we didn't make this decision, Peggy. It's back to you.
I would just recommend we nominate somebody right now, frankly. I mean, let's just keep moving here. We don't have a lot of time. Who's not on the call? We nominate somebody that's not on the call.
I was going to go for Ray, actually.
Poor Ray.
Because he's that kind of guy. But I don't want to do it.
He's already on the list to,
I don't want
he's
to
already
put it,
sort of on the list to work on CPC, but
I don't want to put anyone on the spot, so.
we can address this by email and conversation later.
Okay, Dee has a hand up.
Yeah, I just have a suggestion, not to give it to somebody else, but I'm thinking that maybe, I think it's Amrith who has the rec committee.
He does.
I think that's right.
He does,
And
but
he
does.
might be able to find out information for you. I went to the last meeting for him, to the rec committee, and they seem to, know what's going on, and I think they'd be involved with whatever is taking place with the 2025, so it's just a
That's a suggestion.
suggestion.
Thank
That's a
you.
good suggestion. So working backwards, we learned the hard way.
Well,
After Articles 26 to 8, you have an other. I'm
Oh,
curious,
that,
how does the decision on which enterprise fund or funds gets moved out of the consent agenda, and when does that happen? Because if that's part of your report, the sooner that's known, the easier it is.
thank you. That's actually, thank you. That fills in a gap. You'll note that there isn't anything about the enterprise funds. We usually do have a discussion in about the enterprise funds. That's a good question. Matt, do you know when the decision will be made?
I can respond to that. The moderator is unlikely to make those decisions until after all the hearings. Because if you put something on the consent agenda prior to the hearing, it doesn't look good. So
Okay.
I think I'm looking at my little thing here. The final warrant article is ours on March 15th. And I believe she would identify the consent agenda after that, based on the hearings.
Lois, we included all of it in the summary format anyway, right? In the
Right.
report.
It's
Yeah,
all
we
it's all
covered all
in
of
that
it.
in
Yeah.
that with when you all give yourself the great pleasure of looking at last year's, I happen to have a copy of here. There is a whole section.
Yeah, it's on page
that
39.
runs. Yep. It runs pages 16 through whatever, and it's a chart that includes every article that we are commenting on, and a recommendation and a reason for a recommendation.
Yeah. But you in the deep dive section, you have all the town enterprise budgets.
I do. That's
You
true.
do in one summary item. So we're going to cover it. I would suspect we are. I mean, I like what we did last time. We just had all of them summarized and we showed a chart that had the revenue, we kind of grouped them all together and said, here you go.
Well, then maybe the way we should be doing this is, and this would solve the problem who writes it, but not for Bob and Gail, would be to add a section covering in the deep dive that, yeah, we'll do what we did last year. We'll have a section that covers the relevant articles for all the town enterprise funds. And since it's mostly the chart and the expenses, it would consist of the explanatory text, which is almost identical to last year's. So anybody reading this understands what an enterprise fund is.
Yeah, we
and
just
then the
need
charts. So it's essentially the towns.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Move on to the
I just want to talk about schedule, Peggy.
Before we go there, Lois, can I just interrupt?
Sure.
So I just want to be clear, the detailed review of the outline that you circulated, Lois, the article numbers
Yeah.
don't correspond to the article numbers for this year's warrant.
They should.
Well, if you take a
If
look
I
at
screwed
Article
up, I
29,
apologize, but my goal was to have updated them to this year's warrant.
Okay, so what I would.
So there
recommend-
may be some typos, and if so, I apologize.
That's okay. What
But
I would.
I believe they do actually correspond to
Well,
this year's
Article
warrant.
29 is one I think we're going to comment on. From this year's warrant.
Oh, then you caught me in the typo. The Article 26 through 29 should be D and Ray, because
24
that's
through
all the
29.
CPC.
Okay.
24 through 29.
Yeah.
So all I'm suggesting is maybe, Lois, what
Yeah.
we try to do is for the final decisions, what I would ask
Mhm.
you, and I can do it or you can do it, just take this year's warrant, add the names, and that way it's very clear using current warrant without issues around typos or anything.
I think I lost you, Parashar. Didn't we just
I
do
recommend
that?
just take an, we just,
I would like you guys to do this offline.
Yeah,
yes.
I agree. I
thank you.
agree.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
I
we'll take it
agree.
offline, Lois.
Right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Article 29 isn't about CPC, it's just, I don't think, is it? $90 appropriated to the Junction Village going over to,
Oh, yeah, that's why it's not
there.
there, because we're
It's
not gonna
not-
do a deep dive on it. Actually, Parashar, it wasn't a typo, it's right. The reason it's not there is that we're not doing a deep dive on it. It's going to be in the recommendations in the chart.
Yeah, exactly. It's in the recommendations, right? We're gonna make a
Right,
recommendation.
not everything we're doing a recommendation on is under the
Okay.
detailed review section.
Fair enough. I
The detailed
misunderstood.
review section is a subset. It's those that
Okay,
need
I
discussion.
misunderstood.
Yeah, this is not everything. Oh,
Okay, thank you.
so there wasn't a typo. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to say was I just wanted to remind people, the date that we learned doing this last year, Christine and I learned, that date that it goes to the printer, that is a hard drop dead, no kidding around. If it ain't done, we have failed and we are in violation of state law kind of date. So you should forget early April as your target for anything that you're preparing to contribute. Anything that you guys are going to be contributing has to be in my hands, Peggy's hands, in Gail and Bob's hands 10 days before. So really right after, some of the things can be done before our last hearing. Some things will have to wait until after, right after our last hearing. Nothing can wait more than a day or so after our last hearing, because all of the pieces need to be put together. And it's a surprisingly time-consuming process. So the real deadline for all of these materials is mid-March at the latest. You forget anybody said it goes to the printer on April 5th.
Lois, I'm gonna move on.
Good.
Our item 5, review of the 5-year tax bill projections, Bob.
Parashar, I saw an email in the last few days, and from Lois's outline. Am I to understand that I'm going to supply essentially data to you and you'll write it all up? Does that sound right?
Well, sort of.
Okay.
I think
Well, we
what
can
I'd
work
like-
together on it, in other words.
Yeah, I think what we'll work together on it. I understand, Bob, that you're developing a new model for forecasting, projecting 5-year tax revenues.
Oh,
I was informed that the formal model known as Dean's model is going to be replaced by something simpler and
oh,
maybe a
okay.
little bit more accurate. Sorry?
I said, okay.
Yeah, we can talk about it offline, but the concept is just, I think relatively simple assumptions moving forward for different revenue sources. I mean, you guys know how to do this. And once that model's prepared, we can just write up a high-level summary of kind of what we're seeing. And I think it'll tie nicely to the 5-year cost estimates that we'll have from the town, CPS and the regional school district to really give a consolidated perspective of the total town budget going forward, as well as total revenues. And we could talk a little bit offline, but what I was also thinking is we could probably also project if and when we would hit the levy limit. Again, looking out over the horizon, when it's 2 or 3 years down the line, absent any changes in the cost side or absent changes on the revenue assumptions, we're going to hit the levy limit at a certain point, presumably. Whether it's a 6-year out or whether it's in the 5-year window, we could potentially have some discussion around that as well. So nothing too extravagant, but just high level, a couple charts and maybe a graph.
Okay, and just one question for the group. If there are warrant articles, and right now we don't know the source of funds, they can really only be either free cash or the tax levy. So should an assumption be, for instance, that if the school budget goes as it is now to town meeting, should we assume that hits the tax levy, and so on and so forth for the other articles? Because that'll make a big difference in your tax bill projection.
Yeah, so Bob, here's what I would recommend. Why don't you and I take it offline? We develop a set of assumptions that seem reasonable. We can bring it back to FinCom, see whether they make sense, and then go off of that,
Okay,
right? I mean, I'd like to develop something that's, relatively standard practice that other towns have used from your experience, from Gail's experience, and that seem reasonable, and then we can go from there.
I think it's too soon to model any expenses that haven't been voted, or like I would go with what's in the warrant, but I would not go with modeling, what ifs.
I don't think we're modeling a what if, right? We've gotten 5-year cost estimates from the town, the schools, et cetera.
Yep.
We have to model a 5-year tax projection. And the tax projection, of course, is based on, well, what does it look like we're spending and what does it look like we're getting in revenue? Other than non-property, we can make an assumption, certain assumptions around non-property tax revenue. The rest of it really kind of has to come from property tax, and that's where the impact on the property tax shows up. Does that make sense? And we're not going to complicate this. We're not going to have 3 different scenarios. It's just the base scenario. Here's what it is.
Perfect.
Good.
Okay.
Bob, I thought you were ready to present the numbers.
I could. They might not be very accurate.
Much longer. Okay. Thank you. CPS 24 budget. Fair share.
Well, sure, I can kick it off. And Kathy, hopefully we can start a little bit of a discussion. I mean, I'll share, I guess, my perspective on what I heard at last week's joint meeting, and others that were there can chime in. I know we've got members of the school committee here as well with us today.
As well as reporters. Yep.
Yep. So, I think, so I'll just, I was a little disappointed in what I heard, and I'm not going to get into the details, but what I was expecting and hoping was we'd have a pretty good sense of, what the historical trend has been like. And we certainly got some of that data compared to other towns in the area, and we certainly had that data. I was also expecting to understand what are the schools' strategic priorities and objectives, and how are we doing relative to those, and what more do we have to go? And that last part was missing for me. And so I come away still not quite sure what the school is planning to do, not planning to do, about what I've always said. There's in the cost, there's just a imbalances around where I lost my train of thought, but there's a structural issue with the costs, right? They've grown about 4% a year on average historically. We thought they were coming down based on the 5-year cost estimates that were presented to us in the fall, which is great news, but didn't quite understand why that might be the case. And then on the contrary, we heard that in fact, they're going to continue around 4% a year, and didn't hear anything about what do we do to address those long-term issues. So from my perspective, I walked away a little bit uncomfortable. I do know and understand and appreciate the work that the school committee and the schools have gone into putting together this year's budget. From what I understand, they are going to go back and maybe revisit to see what they can do for fiscal year 25, 24. But again, from my perspective, fiscal year 24 is kind of small potatoes. So what's going to be happening over the next 4 to 5 years? So that's kind of my sense of what I walked away with. Peggy, you're muted. I
You're on
think.
mute.
Okay. I would just like to say I was pleased they met with us. There have been many years where, the finance committee or the board of selectmen or whoever, wanted to meet with the school committee. They basically said, no, we're too busy, or, our numbers are what they are. And I felt that, Parashar, you brought up some really good points at that meeting, as did you, Christine, and others that attended. It's always been a tough, a tough discussion. So hopefully we can make some progress on the structural issue, but it's tough. Anyway, Don.
Yeah, thanks. I want to share an observation and make a proposal. The observation is I saw something in that meeting that I've never seen in my career, and that was very detailed discussion of potential budget items to be eliminated or cut at a very early level in this process. And when an employee of the schools spoke to say that her position is on the list to be eliminated, my heart broke, because that should never happen. I think it's very unprofessional. So I'd like to propose that when FinCom asks for details about what might be cut, that we ask that information be given to us in a general way. We don't need to know whose position is going to be, and I'm sure we didn't request knowing a specific librarian to lose their job or a music program to be eliminated. We don't need that level of detail to make our decisions, nor is that in the budget that we receive for that matter. But I think as a citizen of the town, the town's an employer, the schools are an employer, we have to be mindful of the people who are impacted by these, and that we be able to carry on a conversation about the overall level of spending, which is really what we're interested in here, without causing angst and anxiety among employees and students.
Thank you, Don. Any folks that want to comment on that meeting?
Before anybody comments, Peggy, Kathy, did I answer your question you were looking for in terms of what the status was, or no?
No, I was just looking to see if anything has happened since that meeting in terms of any further movement on the gap.
Not that I'm aware of, but we've got 2 members or 3 members of the school committee. Maybe they can tell us at some point.
You know what, I would just interject that, it was an informational meeting and, we have a hearing coming up, so putting the school committee through a hoop after a hoop after a hoop. I mean, we have heard, I don't think we heard a lot of new information the other night. There's, not a whole lot of areas that, things can be cut. There's a lot of fixed areas that can't be cut. And that's been true for 20, 25 years, as far as I know. So I guess I would defer that until after the hearing.
Okay.
I mean, it's the same people delivering the same information, and we will hear from the public. We can, we can ask questions. It'll be our hearing. And that one is in March, correct? March 9th.
9.
Yeah.
And just
um,
one last comment, Peggy. I would like to reinforce what Dawn said, and that is we don't ask for the type of details that were provided, and we certainly don't receive details when we see the budget. So very well said, Dawn.
if I could comment on that, the current administration at the schools provides, I think, tremendously more detail than they did 20 years ago in the previous administrations in terms of line items. Now, we don't get to vote on those line items, but the information is much more transparent than it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Not that the information is there, the dollar cuts are not. So that's how I view it. Bob, you were going to say something? Bob? Oh, I thought you were waiting. Okay, anyone else want to weigh in? Okay, so, this is all kind of getting it highlighted on the agenda, and we've got the hearings, and I don't want to. Everyone should be thinking about how they view things, but I certainly don't want to move any votes. We will be moving pretty soon for finance committee, affirmative action, no action. Wait till town meeting, which it's not ideal, but can happen. So we're moving in that direction after tonight. But I think we have a good, clear list. Parashar?
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Peggy. So one other observation I'll make that after that meeting concluded, I had some further reflections about that meeting. And one observation I'll make is, at the meeting, I talked and I referenced it around, there's a strat plan that the schools have. It's great. Glad to hear that. Take a look at the metrics. I had a chance to download the metrics and take a look at those. You can quibble with the metrics, but they've got metrics. Unfortunately, as we saw, there's no updating of the metrics where they are, et cetera. But that also got me thinking about the FinCom itself. And I know, Chris, you started this, I think, last year, where we as a committee said, hey, let's identify a couple issues that we want to focus on. I think we progressed on some of them, but at the end of the year, we didn't go back and look at how well we did. And I think the same thing, Peggy, we identified a couple issues this year. hopefully we can go back at the end of this year and say, how did we do ourselves? I think that's a practice that the FinCom can benefit from.
Okay.
And I also went looking at the town website, and the town doesn't have a strat plan. So one of the things I would seriously ask the FinCom to consider, and I'll raise my hand and just sort of volunteer to weave this into our annual report, is a recommendation that the town develop a strategic plan, refresh it, identify the metrics, refresh it. Regional school district and CPS already do it, but again, go back and refresh it, and that's a practice, probably a good practice, both strategically, financially, et cetera, which I think the town and the schools should adopt and consistently update those strategic plans. I think it'll provide a lot of good information at a very high level. Again, you don't want to necessarily get into the weeds, but I think it'll be very useful and help us and citizens make some decisions around where we deploy our resources, both operating as well as capital over the next 4 to 5 years, because it's going to be a tough set of years that we're coming up against. So
Yeah.
I'll just put that out there for FinCom to consider, and hopefully we can have fuller discussion about both what we do as a FinCom moving forward, but also the town and what we recommend the town and the schools do. I'll get off my high horse.
It's good to have someone on a high horse. Okay, that was anything else on the CPS 24 budget? It'll obviously be a ongoing agenda item. Okay.
So Peggy, all I would add is the same thing I said at the meeting, which, it's an issue. If we are going to grow costs at 4% at the largest entity in the budget, we're going to be above where we want to be from the SGR, which is the structural issue, right? It's going to happen year after year. It's already been difficult the past couple of years. So if saving your way out of it is not possible, I don't know, but that's what it sounded like the message we got from the superintendent in this last week, then the other option can't just be it all drops to the tax rate. So we have to start thinking about other sources of revenue. And that to me, that's sort of what we talked about it a little bit at the meeting, but we have to start doing that. And again, that's not just FinCom, that's everybody, right? We have to figure out a way to make it more palatable to absorb those level of increases. So that's where I was at the meeting. That's where I am now.
Christine, I totally agree with you, but it's certainly a tough sell this week.
Yep.
Last year with the zoning article, the Throat District.
Right.
It's tough. I was disappointed in that.
Yep.
Okay, else? Okay, next on the agenda is minutes. Lois.
I have no minutes, but I have drafts of the only minutes that are outstanding. So at our next meeting, we should be completely caught up. We did a whole bunch of them and got everything organized. So we're actually in good shape, and I have drafts in hand, just received the last couple of days of the only minutes that are outstanding. So keep me on the agenda for next time, and there'll be some votes.
Yeah, but that's bad news for me because I didn't assign a scribe for the 15th, and I better get those out quick.
Oh, for
the joint meeting last week, the 15th.
Oh, you did.
That's me.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe we're not in as good shape as I thought. Okay.
We're in pretty good shape, but okay.
We're in pretty good shape.
Any public comments? Done. Okay. Well, then I'm adjourn the meeting.
Oh, I have one
So
comment
moved.
or one question before we adjourn. at the CPC meeting, there was some discussion about Warner's Pond. And I'm wondering how many people on the FinCom have received in the mail the invitation to the community meeting on Warner's Pond. Yeah, Parashar, you have?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, John, you did. Chris, you did.
Yep.
Nobody else has received that. Because the people I've been talking with in the last week, most people have not received it.
My mail thing, whatever, and my husband might have gotten it and thrown away, put it that way.
Okay, well,
I'm
there is
gonna
a
have
QR
to-
code on it that you
I
can
have to
take a
excuse
survey.
myself. I'm sorry.
Lois, what?
I have to drop off. Something's
Oh.
going on here that requires immediate attention. So- I'm sorry.
Bye, Lois.
I'll see. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. for-
Okay, I only bring it up because it is the item that we have been talking about in terms of Warner's Pond, and if you dredge it, or if you take down the dam and the costs associated with that. I haven't been able to find any costs, but they do have a little survey that you can take on what your preferred option would be. And this meeting is on March the 2nd at the Townhouse, starting at 7 p.m. And it's the Warner's Pond Restoration Alternatives. So you may want to attend and see what people are saying about it. That's all.
While you're on that kind of a subject, I would honestly urge everyone to go or physically or online. The select board hearing is this coming Monday.
Hey, Peggy, I have a question. Do we know, so the Baker extension of hybrid meetings runs out at some point in March. Do we know when that date is so that the committee knows? Because we might run into in the middle of hearings where we all have to be present.
Oh, I think we do anyway, right?
Well, no, we have some members who go on hybrid, I think.
Christine, I don't know.
Gail, do you know what date that extension runs out?
I was just
Or
checking. I thought it was towards the end of March, and I don't believe
I
we
think Linda's
heard. I
gonna
think
have-
maybe Linda has an update.
No, that's correct, March 31, unless it gets extended. Yeah.
Okay, so
March
it goes all the way
31.
through to the end of the month. Okay,
Okay.
good, thank you.
We're keeping an eye on it.
Yeah.
Chris, it just,
We expect that will be extended. Okay. I think you all know I will be out of town all of next week and most of the week after, due to my daughter's wedding. I love you all, but hey, you know, your daughter only gets married once, hopefully. So.
Have a blast, Peggy.
What?
Have a blast.
Right, yeah, so that's gonna take precedence. So Parashar will be chairing our hearing, which is March 1st. Right, Parashar?
Yes,
That's for the town budget, capital, and community preservation. These are online, well, I won't be able to, not to flip into that one. Planning board is March 7th. I think there's some pretty interesting planning board articles, so I urge people to join that March 7th. And then we will be having our hearing on March 9th to talk about the school budgets and I'll be back for that, but. Anyway. I'll be back, I'll be happy, I'll be relaxed.
Good.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, anything else?
Peggy,
Move to
just a quick
adjourn?
question. When are you not available for a when do you actually leave town?
I will be leaving town, on the, early in the, Wednesday morning.
Early Wednesday morning, okay, I'm gonna drop you a note, maybe we can get together Monday or Tuesday.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
if we have to. Monday or Tuesday, I'm looking at my books here. Okay,
I'll send you a note.
all right,
I think there was
Motion
a
to
hand,
adjourn?
I think there was a hand raised.
No,
It was
yeah,
Linda.
here's a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, just click off.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
have fun, Peggy.
Do we
Just
need,
click off.
do we need like a formal vote since it's remote or no?
Yeah,
I don't think to adjourn you do anymore.
Okay. See you
Yeah.
guys. Have a good weekend.
Okay,
Bye.
Have a great time.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
yeah, you don't actually need a vote to adjourn, as it turns out, right? Christine,
We need
I
a
don't
vote
think
to
so.
adjourn, but not to have a motion to adjourn, but not a vote, I believe.
Yeah, you can adjourn it. As chair, you can adjourn it.
You can adjourn it.